Welcome to Threads of Truth, the podcast where real-life mysteries meet internet speculation. Today, we're going to explore a truly haunting case.
It's one that really sticks with you.
It really does. We're looking at the disappearance of Nyleen Kay Marshall, a 4-year-old girl who vanished back in 1983. Picture this. It's a sunny day in June 25th, 1983. We're deep in the Helena National Forest in Montana. Beautiful place, right?
Absolutely. Vast pine trees everywhere, that sort of rugged mountain scenery. The Elkhorn Mountains, specifically.
And there's a family picnic happening near the old Pony Express Trail. Ham radio operators having get-together, kids playing.
Including little Nyleen Kay Marshall. She was 4, described as, a really happy, energetic kid.
Distinct features, too. Brown hair, blue eyes, a little mole over her left eyebrow, even a chipped baby tooth. Just a typical sweet little girl.
And she was doing what kids do on a summer day, playing near a shallow creek with other children, trying to catch frogs, completely absorbed.
Sounds perfect, doesn't it? Just idyllic.
Until it wasn't.
Exactly. The other kids she was playing with, they just, wandered a little bit ahead. Kids do that.
Mm-hmm. Lost in their own game for maybe just a few seconds.
And when they turned back around,
she was gone. Just vanished. No sound, no struggle reported. Nothing.
It's chilling. How does a child disappear like that, right in the middle of things?
It's the central question, isn't it? And right away, things get even more confusing.
Because of what the other kids said.
Yes. The witness accounts from these young children are crucial, but also, cryptic. One child reported hearing Nyleen say something really strange just before she disappeared.
What was it?
She supposedly said she had to follow the shadow.
Follow the shadow. What does that even mean for a 4-year-old?
Nobody knows for sure. It's so ambiguous. Was it a literal shadow? A person? Something else entirely? It's deeply unsettling.
And wasn't there someone else seen nearby?
Yes. Adding to the unease, there was a sighting of an unidentified man. He was wearing a jogging suit, apparently, seen in the area right around the time Nyleen went missing.
An unknown man near where the kids were playing. That immediately raises red flags.
Huge red flags.
Yep.
So right from the start, you have these bizarre elements.
Yeah.
The vanishing itself, the cryptic remark, the stranger, it points away from just getting lost.
Okay, so that's what we're going to unpack today. We'll walk through the disappearance of Nyleen Kay Marshall, look at the search, the lack of evidence, and then these really strange communications that came later.
Communications that offered a sort of terrifying possibility about what might have happened.
Exactly. We'll look at the evidence, the theories, and just the lasting shadow this case cast over everyone involved. It's a story that's baffled people for decades. So let's start right after she vanished. That moment the kids turn around and she's not there. What happened next?
Pandemonium, basically.
Yeah.
Immediate panic. The family, the other picnickers, they realize she's missing almost instantly.
And the location itself, the Helena National Forest near the Pony Express Trail. It's not exactly downtown, is it?
Not at all. It's rugged. Dense forest, mountains, relatively remote. Beautiful, but a potentially dangerous place for a small child to be lost. Or taken.
So they started searching right away.
Immediately. And it wasn't just a few people. It quickly escalated into a massive search effort.
How massive are we talking?
Hundreds of volunteers poured in. Local community members, people from the ham radio group, law enforcement, search and rescue teams. They brought in search dogs, the kind trained specifically to find people.
And helicopters too, right? Searching from the air?
Yes. Helicopters were used to scan the vast terrain from above, looking for any sign, any color that didn't belong, anything. They covered a huge area of that forest.
Combing through dense woods, rugged ground. It must have been exhausting, painstaking work.
Incredibly so. Driven by that desperate hope, Checking under bushes, along the creek, behind rocks, leaving no stone unturned, as they say.
But what did they find? After all that effort, hundreds of people, dogs, helicopters.
That's the most frustrating, baffling part of the initial search. They found absolutely nothing.
Nothing. No footprint. No piece of clothing.
Zero. No trace of Nyleen. No sign of her clothes, a shoe, a toy she might have dropped. No indication of a struggle, no blood, no disturbed ground suggesting an accident or an attack. It was like she'd vanished into thin air.
That absence of evidence is almost louder than finding something, isn't it?
It really is. Because if a child wanders off in that kind of terrain, you usually expect something. A snagged piece of cloth, a track, maybe even tragically remains eventually.
Or if it was an animal attack.
You'd expect signs of that too. Disturbance, maybe remains, evidence of a predator. The complete void of any physical clues what quickly pushed investigators away from the lost child or animal attack scenarios.
So a lack of evidence pointed towards something else.
It strongly suggested abduction. The idea that someone took her and did so quickly, efficiently, and left no trace behind, that level of clean removal is deeply disturbing.
Especially considering the other details, the man in the jogging suit, the follow the shadow comment. It starts to paint a picture.
A very unsettling picture. The police theories shifted pretty fast from accident to foul play, specifically abduction, simply because nothing else made sense with the absolute lack of physical evidence in such a thoroughly searched area.
Okay, so the initial search yields nothing. Years start to pass. What happens then? Does the case just go cold?
For a while, yes. Leads dried up. The family was left in limbo. But then, something really bizarre started happening. Over 2 years after she vanished, between 1985 and 1986.
What was it?
Anonymous communications. Letters and phone calls began to surface.
Anonymous. Who are they sent to?
This is interesting. They weren't just sent to the police. Some went to the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, NCMEC.
Okay, that makes sense. They handle these cases.
But some also went directly to Nyleen's parents.
Directly to the family. Wow, that's cruel, almost. Or incredibly bold.
It adds a layer of psychological torment, doesn't it? And it wasn't just one letter or one call. It was a series, indicating a sustained effort by whoever was behind it.
What did they say? What were the claims?
The claims were chilling. The anonymous man, it was clearly a man's voice on the calls, and implied in the letters, stated unequivocally that he had abducted Nyleen.
He admitted it, just like that.
Pretty much. The letters went into this disturbing narrative. He claimed he was raising her as his own daughter.
Raising her?
Yes. And he said he was calling her Kay, which was Nyleen's middle name. Not Nyleen, Kay.
Why Kay? Any idea?
The implication was maybe it was part of erasing her past identity. Or maybe just a name he preferred. He described taking her to different places, saying he was homeschooling her.
Homeschooling to keep her out of the system.
Exactly. To avoid school registration, doctors, any official records. He talked about actively avoiding detection, moving around. It reads like a kidnapper's manifesto almost.
That sounds unbelievable, like something out of a movie. How did investigators react? Did they believe it or just think it was a hoax?
Well, that's the critical point. You get hoaxes in these cases all the time, cruel people trying to interfere or get attention. But this was different.
How so?
The man included details in his communications, specific pieces of information about Nyleen's disappearance that had never been released to the public.
Ah, details only someone involved would know.
Precisely. Things that weren't in the newspapers, things only the family, the initial investigators, or the perpetrator would be aware of. Maybe a specific item she was wearing, or something said at the picnic that wasn't reported. The police haven't revealed exactly what these details were to protect the case, but they were convinced.
Convinced that this person was credible.
They believed he was, as they put it, privy to things only the abductor could know. That's what made them take these letters and calls very, very seriously. It suggested authenticity.
Wow. So they thought this might actually be the guy. But the content, raising her, it gets worse, doesn't it?
It does. Beyond claiming he was raising her as Kay, the man also made statements suggesting that Nyleen was being sexually abused.
Oh no, that's just horrific.
Absolutely horrific. Imagine the family receiving that information. Any faint hope that she was alive and maybe okay is just shattered by this horrifying possibility. It's a nightmare scenario piled onto the already existing nightmare.
So what did the police do? Could they trace these calls or letters?
They tried. This is the mid-1980s, so tracing technology wasn't what it is today, but they put effort into it. They worked with the phone companies.
Any luck?
They managed to trace some of the calls to public phone booths, pay phones, which makes sense for anonymity.
Any specific location?
One location that stood out was a phone booth near a pharmacy in Edgerton, Wisconsin.
Wisconsin, so not Montana.
Right. Which fits with the claim of moving her around, potentially taking her out of state. It gave them a geographical area to look into, but Wisconsin's still a big place.
So did they ever identify the caller, the letter writer?
Unfortunately, no. Despite tracing calls to specific booths, they could never pinpoint the individual making them. The calls eventually stopped. The letters ceased. That compelling lead, the one with the private details, just went cold.
Another dead end. That must have been incredibly frustrating for investigators.
Immensely frustrating.
Mm.
To have someone seemingly confessing, providing details, but remaining a ghost. It highlights the challenges of investigation back then against someone determined to stay hidden.
Was there anything after that? Any other leads?
There was a glimmer of hope much later, in the mid-1990s. A report came in about a girl in a different state who looked remarkably like Nyleen would have looked at that age.
Really? That must have been a huge moment.
You can only imagine the anticipation for the family. Could this finally be her after all these years? Authorities investigated.
Yeah.
They conducted DNA testing. By the 90s, DNA was becoming a much more powerful tool in these cases.
Did it match?
No. The DNA test definitively ruled her out. It wasn't Nyleen.
Oh, that's heartbreaking. Another hope dash.
Just devastating. A real emotional roller coaster for the family, ending in disappointment again. It underscores how these cases can drag on, offering false hope and renewed grief.
Okay, so we have the vanishing, the strange clues, the fruitless search, and these disturbing, possibly authentic communications. Let's try to pull these threads together and look at the main theories. The one police leaned towards was stranger abduction, right?
Yes, that became the prevailing theory, and there's quite a bit supporting it. First, you have the eyewitness account, that unidentified man in the jogging suit near the picnic area just before she vanished. That's a big piece.
An unknown person in the right place at the right time, potentially.
Exactly. Then, probably the strongest pillar supporting this theory, the anonymous calls and letters, especially the fact they contain those private, unreleased details. That suggests inside knowledge, the kind an abductor would have.
It makes it hard to dismiss as just a hoax.
Very hard. And finally, there's the complete lack of physical evidence in the search area. If she'd wandered off or had an accident, you'd expect something to be found eventually in such a massive search. The absence points to a deliberate removal.
A clean getaway, almost.
It suggests efficiency and planning, characteristics often associated with stranger abductions, sadly.
But you mentioned it's still just a theory. What are the weaknesses? Why isn't it a closed case if the evidence points that way?
The biggest gap is simple. They never identified the man in the jogging suit, and they never identified the anonymous caller writer. Without identifying the perpetrator, you can't definitively prove the theory, no matter how compelling the circumstantial evidence is.
So the who is missing.
The who is completely missing. That lack of identification means the theory remains unproven and the case remains open. It's a frustrating reality of cold cases, strong indicators, but no conclusive proof.
What about other possibilities? Accidental death seems unlikely given the lack of evidence, but the terrain was dangerous.
It was definitely rugged, dense forest, mountains. That's the only thing that might make you pause and consider an accident. Maybe she fell somewhere inaccessible or got trapped. But the evidence just doesn't support it. The sheer lack of any trace, no clothing fiber, no shoe, no remains found over decades, in an area searched so intensely, makes a simple accident highly improbable. Children who get lost usually leave some sign.
And the other factors.
Right, you still have the man in the jogging suit sighting, which suggests intervention. And critically, you have the anonymous communications claiming abduction. Those directly contradict an accidental death scenario. Taken together, accident just doesn't fit the known facts well at all.
Okay, and the animal attack theory. Wildlife is present there.
Yes, bears, mountain lions, they exist in the Helena National Forest. It's a possibility that has to be considered initially.
But again, the evidence.
Exactly the same problem. No signs of an attack, no blood, no torn clothing, no struggle, no remains. Animal attacks, especially fatal ones, almost always leave physical evidence behind. Scavengers might obscure things later, but usually not everything, especially right after the event during a massive search.
And the letters claiming she was alive and being raised elsewhere.
Those communications completely undermine the animal attack theory too. Why would someone write letters claiming they abducted her if she'd been killed by an animal? It just doesn't line up. Both the accident and animal theories crumble under the weight of the missing evidence and the subsequent communications.
Which brings us back to those communications. You mentioned investigators were divided on whether they were real or a hoax. Can we explore that a bit more?
Yeah, this is a really crucial point of contention within the investigation itself. Some investigators lean heavily towards them being cruel, elaborate hoaxes.
Why would they think that?
Well, they might argue the private details weren't that private, maybe gleaned from someone at the picnic indirectly, or even just lucky guesses by someone obsessed with the case. Or perhaps the person writing was simply a very astute observer of the initial search efforts. Plus, the act of contacting the family years later can seem overly dramatic, almost like a performance.
Trying to insert themselves into the story.
Potentially. Or just deriving some sick satisfaction from the torment. So one camp viewed it with extreme skepticism, believing it was unrelated to the actual disappearance.
But the other camp felt differently.
Yes, others thought the specificity of those unreleased details was too accurate to be guesswork. They argued it strongly suggested authenticity, that this had to be someone with direct knowledge, most likely the abductor.
Why would an abductor reach out like that?
That's the psychological puzzle. Maybe desire to taunt, to exert control, a twisted need for connection or confession, or even, bizarrely, to reassure the parent she was alive in his own warped way. We can't know the motive. But for these investigators, the private details were the key. They couldn't easily dismiss it.
So this division itself highlights the ambiguity. The letters could be the key, or just a painful distraction.
Precisely. It leaves everyone in this uncomfortable gray area. Were they chasing a ghost based on authentic clues? Or were they being manipulated by a hoaxer while the real trail went cold elsewhere? That uncertainty is part of the tragedy.
So where does the case stand today, officially?
It remains an open, unsolved case. The Jefferson County Sheriff's Office in Montana still actively investigates it. They haven't given up.
And their primary focus is still abduction.
Largely, yes. Based on the available evidence or lack thereof, the abduction theory, likely linked to the anonymous communicator, remains their strongest line of inquiry. They hold out hope for new leads, maybe advances in DNA or other forensic tech, or someone finally coming forward.
That commitment after 40 years is significant.
It really speaks to the impact of the case. And of course, the impact on the Marshall family has been immeasurable.
Decades of not knowing. It's unimaginable.
Truly, living with that profound loss, that gaping hole of uncertainty, and then having those communications surface. It must have a terrible double-edged sword.
Hope mixed with horror.
Exactly. A flicker of hope she's alive, immediately followed by the horrific descriptions of her alleged life and abuse. It's a unique kind of psychological torture, living with that possibility.
And we should mention, adding to their pain, the unrelated tragedy concerning Nyleen's mother.
Yes, it's important to note, though entirely separate from Nyleen's case, her mother, Nancy Marshall, was tragically murdered in Mexico in 1995. Completely different circumstances, not connected, but just an unbearable compounding of grief for that family.
Just layer upon layer of tragedy. Why do you think this case specifically still resonates? Why does it linger so strongly?
I think it's a confluence of factors. Firstly, the initial persistent lack of any physical evidence is just baffling. How does someone vanish so completely? Secondly, the anonymous communications are so specific and disturbing, yet led nowhere, leaving that tantalizing, terrifying possibility hanging.
And the inability to identify the man in the jogging suit or the collar.
Right. Those missing pieces keep the puzzle incomplete. And the setting itself, a child taken from a seemingly safe family gathering in broad daylight, adds a layer of vulnerability and fear. It hits close to home for many people.
The exercise in frustration, as the search was called, searching that vast wilderness.
It highlights the immense difficulty. Imagine searching day after day, finding nothing. The helplessness. And in a small community, a case like this creates ripples, suspicion, unease that can last for generations. Who was the man in the jogging suit? Was he local? Was the anonymous caller someone they knew? It can poison the atmosphere.
Which leaves us with the one huge unanswered question after all this time.
Where is Nyleen Marshall?
Over 40 years later, that's still the question. It's a chilling thought. A child failed somehow, taken right under everyone's noses.
Yet even now, there's that thread of hope, however thin. The possibility she could still be alive, maybe unaware of her past. It seems unlikely after so long, especially given the claims in the letters, but
hope persists.
It does. It's what keeps investigators looking, what keeps people talking about her case. The refusal to let her just be forgotten.
So, to wrap up, the disappearance of Nyleen Kay Marshall remains a deeply unsettling mystery. A little girl gone from a picnic, a huge search finds nothing, and then these cryptic, terrifying letters and calls years later, painting a grim picture, but offering a strange proof of life.
Was it a stranger abduction by the man in the jogging suit, possibly the same person who contacted them later? Or is the truth something else entirely still hidden? The lack of concrete answers is agonizing.
The truth might be lost to time, buried in the Montana wilderness or in the mind of someone who never got caught. But that hope for answers, maybe even for Nyleen herself, endures.
It's a testament to not giving up, even after decades.
And it leaves you thinking, what does it truly mean for a family, for a community to live with that kind of open question, that void, for a lifetime? Something profound to consider.
We hope this exploration gave you some insight into this baffling case.
Next time, we step aboard the Disney Wonder to examine the mysterious disappearance of Rebecca Corium, a crew member who vanished at sea, leaving more questions than answers.
Join us then as we continue to unpack complex stories and extract important insights. Thank you for joining us on Threads of Truth.